Helen, we'll start with you. Yeah. Okay, so you said you were talking about last week at the beginning of the class, and you said when you guys gave me your introduction, I would just say when you guys introduce yourself. Then you talked about the connections between banks and government later on. When you said I didn't realise there was a connection between banks and the government, I'd just say that I wasn't aware of any links between banks and the government.
I wasn't
aware, yeah, or affiliations. Okay. Then you were talking about hackers with these guys. You said they consider hackers when they were talking about concern. You could just say they're concerned about hackers. Considering would just be thinking, but then I think it's more of a concern, more of a negative thing. And that's what I got there. Okay, then we move on to Alanis. When you talked about this guy who owned the company, you said I was curious about him. I find Koreans use curious too much, so I would probably say intrigued. Intrigued. Yeah, or interested, but intrigued suggests a little bit more than an investigate. Yes, I'm intrigued about him. I want to know a little more. Yeah. Incorporated. When you talked about this, you said incorporated. You don't need to say the whole word. Just say inc. No one ever says incorporated. Referred to his bachelor's degree in mathematics. I'd say BA. A BA in maths. Maths with an S in the UK, because we say maths with an S. You know how in America they say math. England we say maths. Maths with an S. MATHS. Yeah, maths. Yeah. And you talked about the podcast you listen to. You said it teaches you not to be a foolish consumer. I would say it teaches me to be a savvy shopper. Savvy, S-A-V-V-Y. Savvy shopper. Last thing, I don't like my time wasting thinking about money. When you're talking about investing, I don't like wasting my time thinking about money. Then we shall go to Duncan. Yeah. Okay, so we talked about fintech affect banks. Just fintechs will affect banks. You said right at the beginning, tell us why you invest. This tell us why you invest. It said looking at trends. I'd say this tells us why you why you invest. You said I'm a little bit close to a risk taker. I would say I share similarities to a risk taker. Yeah, or I am similar to a risk taker, rather than saying a little bit close. Okay. When you were talking about Kakao Pay, you said it's easy to access, which is fine, that's okay, but I would just say it's very accessible. Just a different way of looking at it. Gia, you talked earlier about Google caring their children. I'd say just they provide daycare. We just call it daycare. You talked about work rules of Google. I would say the way they were described, I would say company ethics. Yeah, or organizational culture. Yeah. Or the expression that Helen used earlier, I'll use that as well, but I've forgotten it now. Yeah. I prefer, last thing you were talking about investing, I prefer to separate my money to stable and risky. I would say I prefer to separate my investments between stable investments and risky investments. Just between. Then you identify two. I think there's, and then we have Erin. You talked stock drop dramatically. We're talking about investing. I'd say when the stock drops, or when the stock drops dramatically. You said in order to be good at the stock market, you have to study a lot. I'll probably say research a lot. Just do a lot of research. Yeah, study's fine. I just think research sounds a bit more fluid. You said invest money in stock market. It would be invest money in the stock market or in the stock market. Yeah, and then you said we were talking about you have to be interested in the stock market. You could also say more in tune with the stock market. In tune. The expression kind of, with the radio, you tune in to get the right reception. In tune would be suggesting to understand properly. Yeah. You said more simple about something I can't remember exactly, but simpler. Just things are simpler. Things are not more simple. Okay. Simpler. There we go.